Hello everyone, Susie here with part 4 of the Java Basics series. In the last video, we discussed objects and classes. This video, we will discuss more about creating these classes. So without further ado, open your IDE, grab a pen and notebook and a drink, and let's get started. Let's do a quick review. We've been building programs using the standard class that contains the title of the program, and inside that class we used a method called the main method. Remember that classes start with the public class and then the name of the class. This method is a group of programming statements that is given a name, and when it is invoked, its statements are executed. So here is a quick simple program called hello. It has a class of hello and a main method, which when invoked will perform the print line instructions. So when we run the program, we will have an output of hello world. Now Java accepts multiple classes, not just the one. These classes are written in different programs that the main program will tap into and get the instructions from. These classes have multiple methods that the original program will draw instructions from. These separate classes from the main program usually start with the constructor, which is a special kind of method. It contains the name of the program. Thus, the program name is piano. The class constructor is public class piano. The constructor usually contains the initialized data fields. Remember that the initialized data fields are the typed variables with a value attached. It can be type variable and value, such as integer keys equals 88, or type and variable, then the variable and value, which may be declared in another method, such as integer keys, where keys equals 88 might be in some other method. We also have methods called accessors and mutators, or getters and setters. Accessors or getters will provide read-only access to a particular value. It only gets the information, it doesn't change it. Mutators or setters change values. They set a particular value to a variable. A method is a code that will be executed when invoked. Up until now, we have been writing code under the main method. Now we'll explore using class methods. Again, they are constructors, accessors, and mutators. A called method is when a method is being invoked, while a calling method is a method that invokes the called method. Return tells Java to return a specific value set by the method, such that when the method is called, it is invoked, and the value is returned. Here we have a method called public integer roll. When this method is called, it will return an integer value. We know this because the variable roll is set to an integer. Inside the method are instructions to create a variable called face value that will be given a value of a math problem. Java will perform the math problem, store that value as the variable face value. Now when the method roll is invoked, the value that was stored for face value will be displayed or used. So I'm going to break from tradition, and we will create a program together that I think will help you to understand how classes and methods work. Together we are going to create this program called Transactions, which calls methods from a class called Account, which is created in a separate program. It looks complicated, but I'll walk you through the steps, and hopefully by the end you'll have a better understanding of how classes and methods work. So this is the output of the program. There is a welcome message, followed by a list of initial accounts. And then we perform some deposits and withdrawals. Then we redisplay the account information to show the changes. Then we add the interest. And finally, we display the final bank account balances. So let's get started. Open your IDE if you haven't already. I am using IntelliJ, but the process is the same. The first thing you want to do is create two files, one called Transactions.java and one called Account.java. Transactions will be the main program that will call the methods that we create in Account. We will begin to build Transactions.java first, then move to Accounts.java, and then back to Transactions.java. So make sure both files are open. Also, make sure you save the files in the same folder, the SRC folder if you're using IntelliJ. Again, transactions will be the main method that will call the methods created in Account. So in transactions, start by typing the usual public static void main method. At the top above public class transactions, let's import java.text.number format. We will use this to format our numbers into currency. Let's create a variable for this number format. So inside the main method, we'll put number format fmt1 equals number format dot get currency instance, open parentheses, close parentheses, and a semicolon. Remember that the number format calls the import, followed by the variable name, which we called fmt1. Then number format dot get currency instance, which will get that particular class. Now let's open up the Account.java file. We will need to create a class that contains several methods that the Transactions.java program will call. At the top, let's import java.text.number format. We will use this later in one of our methods. Next, we will need to think about the different methods that we will use. In comments, I'll type out what we need. You can do the same if it helps you to visualize what we are doing. Remember that the // means comment. So you will need a method that holds information about the account, such as the account number, the name of the account holder, and the balance of that account. Next, we need a method for deposits, a method for withdrawals, a method for adding interest, a method for displaying the balance, and finally, a method to display the account information as a whole. Then we need to think of a rate for interest and declare some variables. So let's do that. Let's determine that the interest rate will be 3.5%. Pretty generous in today's times. So within the class account, let's set that up. We'll type in private final double rate in capital letters equals 0.035 semicolon. Comment interest rate. Private here means that the method cannot be invoked from outside of the class. The only thing this method will do is help other methods. Final means that the value cannot be changed by any other part of the code. And finally, rate, in all caps, is a variable name which tells Java that the variable is a constant and will remain the same throughout the program. I'm making the comment that this line represents the interest rate. It is a good idea as you build your programs to comment on things not only for the user, but you as the programmer. Now let's declare some variables. These variables will be used in the account class that will hold the account number, the owner name, and the balance. We will make these private. Again, private is a visibility modifier and can only be accessed by the methods of the class. So let's create. Private long account number, private string with a capital S, name, and private double balance. Notice how these variables are uninitialized. We have not set a value for them. This initialization will be done with the help of our parameters in the methods we will create and later call in the main method of the Transactions.java file. Let's create the constructor class that will take these variables. Public account, string owner, comma, long account, comma, double initial. Name equals owner, account number equals account, balance equals initial. Let's go ahead and add a comment that this is the constructor and it initializes the owner, account, and balances. In the parentheses after account, we give Java instructions for how we want the information to be inputted. These are called parameters. Each parameter is separated by a comma, and they will be inputted in the order that is given. So we want to first enter in the owner's name, which will be a string, then the account number, and then the initial account balance or starting balance. We kind of duplicated this process from above, and that's okay. All we did was give the variables we declared above new names. So the names become owner, and account number becomes account, and balance becomes initial. However, we can still use the original variables in the program, as you will see later, as with balance. Now let's create the methods for deposits, withdrawals, adding interest, and balance. Remember that these are methods and need to be within the account class. So we need public double deposit. And this method will return a balance so that it will take a parameter amount, add it to the balance, and then return the balance. Next method will be public double withdrawal. This method will also return a balance. It will take in two parameters, amount and fee. It will add both parameters together and subtract that from the balance. The next method will be public double add interest. This method will also return a balance. It will take the current balance and add to it the current balance times the interest rate. The next method will be public double get balance. This method will only return a balance. This is a getter or an accessor method. Here is what the program looks like so far. We will continue to add more, but this is the basic layout. Now let's set up the parameters for each method. We can declare the variables in the parameters. We will add double amount to the parentheses in deposit method. We will add double amount followed by a comma, then double fee in the withdrawal method. The first parameter, double amount, calls for the user to enter in the amount to be withdrawn, and then to enter in a fee associated with that withdrawal. ATMs usually charge a withdrawal fee when a person uses the ATM machine not within their banking network. Both methods for add interest and get balance will take no parameters. Now let's set up the methods. Think, what instructions do we want each method to perform? For deposit, we want to add an amount to the initial balance and return a new balance. So let's type balance equals balance plus amount with a semicolon. On the next line, return balance, semicolon. For withdrawal, we need to subtract an amount to the initial balance, as well as subtract an amount for the fee from the balance and then return the new balance. So let's type balance equals balance minus amount minus fee, semicolon. On the next line, return balance. Now note that this does not necessarily have to be for the initial balance. If we've already created a deposit for this transaction, then it'll take that balance and make the calculation of minus the amount and minus the fee against that balance. To add interest, we already set up what the interest rate will be and set it to the constant variable rate. Now we want to call that variable. When adding interest, we first need to calculate the amount of interest to incur, which is balance times rate. Then we need to add to that balance, and we want the value of the new balance to be returned. So let's type balance plus equals, in parentheses, balance times rate, with the semicolon. On the next line, return balance, semicolon. Finally, we just want to get the balance in any phase, we just return balance. When getBalance is called, it will get whatever balance is current at that point of instruction. Remember that Java will perform instructions in order. So if we put getBalance after a deposit, we should get a value of the balance after the deposit has been made. So let's type return balance. The final step to setting up Account.java program is to add a string method that will return specific data when called. We'll create the string method to display the account information. Here we use the number format we set up in the beginning. Now let's go ahead and set this up. We'll type public string with a capital S, toString, then number format FMT equals number format dot get currency, return account plus the escape sequence for tab, which is \T, plus name plus two more tabs, plus FMT dot format, and in parentheses balance. This will display the account number, account owner name, and then the balance. This method will be called in a new object that we will create an account in the Transactions.java file. And that's the Account.java file. Pretty easy. So now we will set up the rest of the Transactions.java file. We will give instructions in this file to read the Account.java file and invoke those instructions. Now let's switch back over to Transactions.java. Let's first create 3 new accounts. You can create as many as you like, but for this program, we will start with 3. So to create an account, as you learned in the last video, we will need to create a new account. We call the account class from Account.java and give it a variable such as ACCT1 or account1 or item1 or whatever you want to name it. Then we set it to new account and fill in the parameters. Remember that the account parameters we created were name first, comma, account number, comma, and starting balance. So we should have account ACCT1 equals new account, and then Peter Falk, comma, 987654, comma, $100.15. Account ACCT2 equals new account Don Johnson, comma, 134679, $911.45. Account ACCT3 equals new account Carrie Elwes, 654123, $325.62. Now let's begin with a printout of the intro and the account information. System.out.println will print a blank line, and when you use println, Java will read the line, print it out, and then go to the next line for instruction. Java will only print the data for a particular line when using print, and won't go to the next line for instruction. So remember the distinction between the two. I've added a comment at the beginning so we know what is being done. Again, comments help you to guide a program or give information about a program. It's a good habit to get into. So we have here starting account balance information printout. First line is system.out.println, welcome to Movie Stars Bank. Then we print a blank line, and then we'll print account information, and then we'll print a line of dashes, followed by a blank line. Next, we'll print out account number with a tab, account name, 2 tabs, and a balance. Then we'll print out another line of dashes. Now we will call those accounts that we created up in the very beginning. So we'll have system.out.println ACCT1, then system.out.println ACCT2, then system.out.println ACCT3. The last 3 lines call the Account.java toString method. This is what the section of code will produce. Now we are going to set up the instructions for deposits and withdrawals. We will use the FMT variable that we set up to make sure our answers are in currency. I have included comments for each step so you know what we are performing. So type ACCT1.deposit 2589. This tells Java that we want to first deposit $25.89 into account 1. Leading with the account variable first, we then attach the method we want to use, which is deposit, using a period between the two. This tells Java that we want the method deposit only to work for this variable. We will not see that this amount has been added until we invoke the print line ACCT1.getBalance. All Java is doing is invoking the deposit method, which says add the amount specified to the balance and store the new value. Although there is a return balance associated with this method, Java will not return a balance until we invoke it using the print line statement, as you will see in the next set of instructions. Next, we will print out a blank line to separate what we have done above from what we will print out next. So we type system.out.println. The next step is to combine processes of 2 commands. First, we want to make a deposit of $340 and then print out the balance of that account. To do this, we call the deposit method for ACCT2, like we did before, but we'll format it using our FMT variable. That way it will return as a currency value. So we type system.out.println Johnson's account balance after deposit of $340 plus FMT1.format account2 or ACCT2.deposit 340. The return value will be the initial balance of the account, $911.45, plus the deposit of $340, which will return a value of $1,251.45. Because we use println statement, Java now invokes the return balance part of the deposit method. Before, it just stored the value. Now we will create a withdrawal. To do this, similar to the deposit method, we just replace deposit with withdrawal and enter in the 2 parameters, the first being the amount of the withdrawal and the second the fee in which we are charging to make the withdrawal. So we'll type system.out println Johnson's balance after the withdrawal of $554.85 and $2.50 service fee plus fmt1.format acct2.withdrawal 554.85, 2.50. The return value will be the new balance after the deposit, which is $1,251.45. Because remember that Java performs operations in order, so it's already made the deposit operation, then minus the amount for the withdrawal of $554.85, and minus the $2.50 fee. So the new value that is stored for balance will be $694.10. And the print line statement invokes the return, and the new balance will be displayed. This is what the output of these statements will be. Next, we will ask the program to print out the current balances of the accounts after the transactions were made. Let's type system.out println, which prints a blank line. Then system.out println Mr. Falk's account before interest plus fmt1.format acct1.getBalance. Then systemout.println Mr. Johnson's account before interest plus fmt1.format acct2.getBalance. Then system.out.println Mr. Elway's account before interest plus fmt1.format acct3.getBalance. These statements we are calling the getBalance method, which will return the most current value stored in the variable balance. Lastly, let's add the interest the bank gives each account and then print out the final balances for each account. Compare the numbers before and after the interest. Let's type a comment. Add interest rate to account subtotal 3.5% interest. Then we'll say acct1.add interest to add the interest to account 1, acct2.add interest to add the interest to account 2, then acct3.add interest to add interest to account 3. Here we call the add interest method for each account, which will perform the calculation within the method and add the amount of interest to the balance and store that value in the balance variable. Now let's add the final balance printouts. Let's type as we did in the beginning. The first line will be a blank line, followed by final account balances, a blank line, and then account number, a tab, account name, 2 tabs, and balance. Then we'll draw a number of dashes, followed by the ACCT1, ACCT2, ACCT3. Here is the balances before the interest was added, and here's the final balances after the interest was added. And that's the program. If you now run the program, you should see this output. If you get errors, recheck your code and make any corrections and try again. I encourage you to see if you can improve upon this code with adding extra statements to the Transactions.java file or to both transactions and account files. Practice writing your own codes using the information you have recently learned. In the next video, we'll go over conditionals and loops. We'll cover Boolean expressions, if statements, while loops, and introduce the ArrayList class. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. and consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that bell icon too so you never miss another video.